would pick up. She should never have engaged premenstrual Tom. When would she learn? Her good girl reflexes, help out, be nice, tell the truth, sucked in the practice of law. Mary pushed the button for her direct phone line and called Benny. But there was no answer. She left a detailed message, then hung up, uneasy. She'd call her back in 5 minutes to make sure the boss had gotten the message. Mary eased back in her swivel chair, wishing suddenly that she weren't alone in the office. She eyed the doorway to the conference room, surprised to find the threshold dark. Who turned out the lights in the reception area? Maybe the cleaning people, when they'd left. I'll come down there and shoot. Mary eyed the phone, daring it to ring again. She didn't leave it off the hook because the drill was to record threatening messages for evidence in case the office had to go for a restraining order. Like with premenstrual Fred. Mary wondered fleetingly if she could find a career that didn't attract garden-variety homicidal rage or bad television commercials. She told herself to get over it. Premenstrual Tom had been blowing off steam, and there was a security desk in the lobby of the building. The guard wouldn't let anybody upstairs without calling her first, especially after business hours, and nowadays you couldn't get past the desk without a driver's license and a mortgage note. She got back to work, tucking a dark blonde tendril into its loose French twist and picking up the document she'd been reading. It was a letter dated December 17th, 1941, from the Provost Marshal General's office, a federal agency that no longer existed. Its type was grainy because it was a Xerox copy of a photocopy of a carbon copy, and on another night, Mary would have gotten a charge out of its vintage. Everybody in the office called her case the History Channel. But she loved the History Channel. Mary loved mostly everything on cable, except Inside the Actor's Studio, which she wouldn't watch at gunpoint. But she didn't want to think about gunpoint right now. Mary scribbled useless on a Post-it, stuck it on the letter, and set it in the useless stack in front of her. She ignored how tall the useless stack was getting, because it would be useless. Documents surrounded her and sat packed in boxes along the side wall of the conference room. Somewhere in these papers was the file for a man named Amadeo Brandolini. Amadeo had emigrated from Italy to Philadelphia, where he'd married, had a son, and built up a small fishing business. When World War II broke out, he was arrested by the FBI and imprisoned along with 10,000 other Italian-Americans under an act better known for authorizing the internment of the Japanese. Amadeo lost everything and eventually committed suicide in the camp. His son's estate had hired Mary to sue for reparations, and she couldn't help but mourn him. Very few shows on the History Channel had happy endings, which was why everybody watched Fox. Ring! The phone rang, and Mary jumped. It had to be premenstrual Tom, calling back because she had told Benny to call her on her cell, and she didn't have anybody else to call her, which was why she was working late. Perhaps these things were related, but Mary was in no mood for introspection. She tensed all over. Ring! Ring! Finally, the ringing stopped. The conference room fell silent again. Mary waited for the silence to seem more like friendly silence and less like scary silence, but that wasn't happening. The reception area was still dark. She tried to relax, but couldn't. She glanced over her shoulder, even though she was 32 stories up. It was dark outside, and in the onyx mirror of the windows, she saw the sparkling new conference room, a messy table dotted with styrofoam coffee cups, and a drama queen with a law degree. I'll come down there and shoot. Mary turned back, picked up the phone, and pressed in Benny's cell number. Again there was no answer, so she left another warning, slightly more hysterical. She hung up and checked her watch again. 10:36. It was late. She didn't want to sit here while he called back again. She couldn't concentrate anyway. Time to go. She got out of the chair, stuffed her briefcase with documents, grabbed her purse, and left the conference room. Leather chairs and a matching couch loomed in the darkened reception area, and Mary scooted past the terrifying furniture for the elevator, which didn't come fast enough. Once inside, she breathed a little easier. and when the elevator reached the lobby, she stepped off and glanced around, her pulse slowing to normal. The fake marble lobby was bright and empty, except for a fake granite security desk manned by a guard too sleepy for her comfort level. Bobby Troncello, an amateur boxer, Mary knew from the neighborhood, undoubtedly dozing over the sports page. "Wake up, Bobby," she said, making a beeline for the desk. She set her briefcase on its glistening surface and peeked over the edge. "We got trouble." "What do you mean?" Bobby looked up, edging the maroon cap he hated over his thick eyebrows. His brown eyes were glassy wet, his nose wide and dotted with large pores, and his mouth a slash that was usually swollen from the gym. The Daily News lay open on his desk, tabloid size, its pages cut in a soft zigzag fringe, and a can of Coke warmed beside an oily white wrapper from a cheesesteak dinner. Only the end of the long hoagie roll remained, with a brownish knob like an elbow. "I just got a phone call from a very angry man named Tom Cott. I don't know what he looks like, but he threatened to come here tonight and shoot me." "Uh-oh." Bobby's forehead knit unhappily. "You're supposed to tell me not to worry." "Don't worry, Mare. Benny already told us to watch out for this Cott guy. Nobody gets upstairs, you know that. He comes in my lobby, I'll take care of myself. I wouldn't let anybody hurt my homegirl." Mary smiled, almost reassured. "He went to Benny's house tonight. He said he looked her up in the phone book. I called her and left a message warning her, but I'm worried." "About Rosado? I'd worry about him." Bobby laughed, rising to stretch arms that strained against the seams of his maroon blazer. His lapels parted as he reached up, releasing a heady combination of Drakkar Noir and fried onions. "If that knucklehead tussles with her, she'll kick his ass from here to Broad Street." "But he said he'd shoot me. Or us, I think." Mary couldn't remember much premenstrual Tom had said after shoot, and his calling her a whore bothered her more than it should have, especially when it was part of a death threat in general. What if he has a gun? What if he goes to Benny's house with a gun? "So what? Rosado carries concealed." Bobby snorted. "She'd bust a cap in him before he could find his pants pocket." "Strangely, I feel worse. Is this your best stuff, Bobby?" "Don't worry, everything's fine. You've been working too hard, night after night. Let me get you a cab." Bobby grabbed Mary's briefcase, walked around the security desk, and looped an aromatic arm around her shoulder. "By the way, what'd you decide about my friend Jimmy? You gonna let me hook you up?" Mary hid her dismay. Bobby had been trying to fix her up with his fellow boxers, a continuous loop of Joeys, Billies, and a stray pooch. Lately, everybody was playing matchmaker, as if they'd all decided Mary wasn't allowed to be a young widow anymore. She hadn't known there was an official cutoff. "I told you about Jimmy. We went to Bishop Newman together. He's a real nice guy. Works his dad's plumbing business, got a nice car, season tickets to the Eagles. Club level, Mare." "Thanks, but I don't think so." "You sure?" Bobby led her to the polished brass door, opened it for her, and gentled her outside onto the sidewalk. The night air felt crisp, and there was almost no traffic at this hour. Rosado and Associates had moved to nicer offices uptown since they started doing class action work, and the ritzy new location made it easier to get cabs. Bobby hailed one almost instantly. "Come on, Mare, why don't you give Jimmy a shot?" Mary smiled. "Give him a shot? You're a poet. You gotta get back in the saddle, girl." Bobby opened the cab door with a wink. "Yowza. Another time, thanks." Mary tucked herself inside the back seat of the cab, waved goodbye to Bobby, and gave her address to the cabbie, a bald, older man. He merely nodded in response, strangely taciturn for a Philadelphia cab driver, and for a minute she thought he didn't speak English, but his ID card read John Tucker. They lurched off, rattling through the dark, empty streets of the city, and the cab took on an oddly hollow feel in the interior. Or maybe it was just too clean inside. The black carpet reeked of strawberry spray, the vinyl seat shone with Armor All, and the seat belt actually worked. It was all too topsy-turvy for Philly, and Mary felt disoriented. "You keep your cab very clean," she said pleasantly, but he didn't answer. Maybe he hadn't heard. "This cab is so neat," she said, louder, but he still didn't say anything, so she let it go and slipped lower in the seat, glancing out the window as they barreled up Walnut, past a darkened Burberry's and Kiehl's.